Hello everyone, I am Vandana Sharma, PGT English, the SD Vidya School, and today we are going to read the first chapter of your book Vistas, that is the third level. Let's begin our chapter. This chapter, the third level, is written by Walter Braden Jack Finney, as we know him as Jack Finney, but he was born as John Finney. He was an American author, and his best-known works are science fiction and thrillers, including The Body Snatchers and Time and Again. The former was the basis for the 1956 film Invasion of the Body Snatchers and its remakes. Let me give you a brief overview of the story. It is a story about a 31-year-old man named Charlie. Besides, this is a psychological story that refers to the subway at the Grand Central Railway Station, which takes passengers to Galesburg. In addition, this subway becomes the interconnection between the narrator's harsh reality and fantasy. Moreover, the third level was a way of escape for Charlie. As life in the modern world is full of uncertainties, worries, and stress, it takes Charlie to a different world that his friend also calls a waking dream wish fulfillment. Further, the story is about Charlie's tendency to escape from the world. Most importantly, the third level starts because of Sam's letter written on 18th July 1984. This story shows the connection between time and space. The chapter begins, the presidents of the New York Central and the New York, New Haven, Hartford railroads will swear on a stack of timetables that there are only two. The New York, New Haven and Hartford Railroad, commonly known as the New Haven, was a railroad that operated in the region of United States from 1972 to 1968, dominating the region's rail traffic for the first half of the 20th century. All these railway timetables were ready to swear that there are only two levels of Grand Central Station. But I say there are three. Charlie says that there are three levels. He says, because I've been on the third level of the Grand Central Station. This is a view of the Grand Central Station. There are two levels according to the timetables, but according to Charlie, there are three. He says, yes, I've taken the obvious step. I talked to a psychiatrist friend of mine, among others. I told him about the third level at Grand Central Station, and he said it was a waking dream wish fulfillment. He said I was unhappy. That made my wife kind of mad, but he explained that he meant the modern world is full of insecurity, fear, war, worry, and all the rest of it, and that I just want to escape. But, well, who doesn't? Everybody I know wants to escape, but they don't wander down into any third level at Grand Central Station. But that's the reason, he said, and my friends all agreed. Everything points to it, they claimed. My stamp collecting, for example. That's a temporary refuge from reality. Well, maybe, but my grandfather didn't need any refuge from reality. Things were pretty nice and peaceful in his day, from all I hear. And he started my collection. It's a nice collection too. Blocks of 4 of practically every US issue. First day covers. Well, this is a first day cover. A first day cover is an envelope bearing a stamp or set of stamps postmarked on their day of issue. The date that is there by the post office, this date, it shows that the stamp was bought on the same day when it was issued. It was a nice collection that Charlie had. And it also had President Roosevelt collected stamps too. He is President Roosevelt of America. He served as President of America from 4th March 1933 to 12th April 1945. According to Charlie, President Roosevelt also had the habit of collecting stamps, but he was not visiting any third level like Charlie. Anyways, here is what happened at Grand Central. One night, last summer, I worked late at the office. I worked in a hurry to get uptown to my apartment. So I decided to take the subway from Grand Central because it's faster than the bus. Now, I don't know why this should have happened to me. I'm just an ordinary guy named Charlie, 31 years old, and I was wearing a tan gabardine suit. You can have an idea that how a tan gabardine suit looks like. He was also having a straw hat with a fancy band, and he passed a dozen men who looked just like him. He says I wasn't trying to escape from anything. I just wanted to get home to Louisa, my wife. I turned into Grand Central Room from Vanderbilt Avenue. This is the entrance of Grand Central Station in 1894. This is the Vanderbilt Avenue that led to the Grand Central Station. Then I walked down to the first level, where you take trains like the 20th Century. The 20th Century Limited was an express passenger train that ran between Grand Central Terminal and La Salle Street Station in Chicago. It was operated by the New York Central Railroad from 1902 until 1967. Then I walked down to another flight of the second level where the suburban trains leave from. He ducked into an doorway, heading for the subway, and got lost. That's easy to do. I've been in and out of Grand Central hundreds of times, but I'm always bumping into new doorways and stairs and corridors. Now this is important. He's always bumping into new doorways, always finding new stairs, always finding himself in new corridors. That means he has lost himself at the Grand Central Station many times earlier also. Once I got into a tunnel about a mile long and came up in the lobby of Roosevelt Hotel. Is it possible? Another time I came up in an office building on 46th Street, 3 blocks away. Sometimes he feels that Grand Central is growing like a tree, pushing out new corridors and staircases like roots. He says there's probably a long tunnel that nobody knows about feeling its way under the city right now, on its way to Times Square or maybe another to Central Park. Okay. He says that maybe for so many people through the years, Grand Central has been an exit, a way of escape. Maybe that's how the tunnel I got into. The corridor I was in began angling left and slanting downward, and I thought that was wrong, but I kept on walking. All I could hear was the empty sound of my footsteps, and I didn't pass a soul. Then I heard that sort of hollow roar ahead that means open space and people talking. The tunnel turned sharp left. I went down a flight of stairs and came out on the third level at Grand Central Station. For just a moment I thought I was back on the second level, but I saw the room was smaller. There were fewer ticket windows. This is Times Square. This is Central Park. And this is a view of the many arched corridors in Grand Central Station. It was taken in 1912. The main character, Charlie, he walked down one of these corridors on his way to the third level. When he reached the third level, he found that there were fewer ticket windows. These are the ticket counters to buy tickets and train gates, and the information booth in the center was all made of wood. This is the information booth, and old looking. The man in the booth wore a green eye shade and long black sleeve protectors. The lights were dim and sort of flickering. Then I saw why. They were open flame gas lights. They were not the electricity lights that we have these days in our houses or streets. They were brass spittoons. This is a spittoon. A spittoon is this utensil to spit in. And across the station a glint of light caught an eye. A man was pulling a gold watch from his pocket. This is the way the people used to carry their watch in their pockets, and they used to take it out, open up the flaps, look at the time and put it back. He snapped open the cover, glanced at his watch and frowned. He wore a derby hat, a black 4-buttoned suit with tiny lapels. These are the lapels of the suit. And he had a big black handlebar mustache. This is the handlebar mustache. Then I looked around and saw that everyone in the station was dressed like 1890 something. I saw so many beards, sideburns. This is the sideburns, and fancy mustaches in my life. A woman walked in through the train gate. She wore a dress with leg of mutton sleeves. Leg of mutton sleeves, which are fuller at the upper part and narrow at the lower part. And skirts to the top of her high-buttoned shoes. Back of her on the tracks I caught a glimpse of a locomotive. A very small Curran Ives locomotive with a funnel-shaped stack. This is the stack which is in the shape of a funnel. That's why it's a funnel-shaped stack. And then I knew. To make sure, I walked over to a newsboy and glanced at the stack of papers at his feet. The World. The World hasn't been published for years. The lead story said something about President Cleveland. I've found that front page since in the public library files, and it was printed June 11, 1894. I turned toward the ticket windows knowing that here, on the 3rd level in Grand Central, I could buy tickets that would take Louisa and me anywhere in the United States we wanted to go. In the year 1894. And I wanted 2 tickets to Galesburg, Illinois. Have you ever been there? It's a wonderful town still, with big old frame houses, huge lawns, and tremendous trees whose branches meet overhead and roof the cities, the streets. This is the time of houses, the kind of houses that were there in Galesburg, Illinois in 1894. The trees were so big that they provided a roof on the streets. And in 1894, summer evenings were twice as long, and people sat out on their lawns, the men smoking cigars and talking quietly, the women waving palm leaf fans. Well, this is a palm leaf fan, with the fireflies all around, in a peaceful world. To be back there with the First World War still 20 years off, and World War II over 40 years in the future, I wanted 2 tickets for that. The clerk figured the fare. He glanced at my fancy hatband, but he figured the fare, and I had enough for 2 coach tickets one way. But when I counted out the money and looked up, the clerk was staring at me. He nodded at the bills. "That ain't money, mister," he said, "and if you're going to skin me, cheat me, you won't get very far." And he glanced at the cash drawer beside him. Of course, the money was old-style bills, half again as big as the money we use nowadays, and different looking. I turned away and got out fast. There's nothing nice about jail, even in 1894.